See this logo here? You can find this logo on YouTube Music, or go to my channel, the JTF Student Podcast, go to the podcast icon or playlist icon to see more podcast episodes easier. Welcome to the JTF Show Podcast. Now, here's your host, JTF. It seems like Ben Shapiro has changed in certain things, but not in others, and that doesn't mean I agree with him on everything now. No, definitely not, but he has changed, and I think somewhat for the good, mainly regarding Trump and the Republican Party. It seems a little bit, he's been a lot more critical. He's been a lot more truthful. I don't know about any or everything else that he believes in the VS change on certain things or not, but at least with that he has. But for this comments from me, JTF, yours truly, obviously, we're gonna go back in time a little bit to where he was not so, and for some weird reason I still don't understand why he didn't connect the dots. But at least now he knows a little bit. He knows a lot more, both politically and theologically, in a sense. Jesus Christ, name Amen. Because as a Christian, I want a lot of other people to become Christian. Obviously, not ignoring. Obviously, we are Judaism 2.0, but I think in the Christian perspective, that's fine because we're meant to be Judaism 2.0. We're supposed to advance. Judaism advance in a sense, kind of, not to be disrespectful to any Jewish person, regardless of your beliefs, whether you're right or left. I'm just saying in that sense. So, get on your DeLorean or chair DeLorean from me. I'm gonna go back to the past. Alright, the year is, I think, 2021 or something. I don't know. It's been 1,000 years ever since 2019, especially regarding COVID. But, yeah, we'll most likely figure out which year we're in.
The big story of the day continues to be that Facebook has maintained its ban on Donald Trump. Donald Trump, as you'll recall, was banned on January 7th from Facebook, as well as YouTube, as well as Twitter, as well as Instagram, pretty much everywhere. There's a blanket ban put on the sitting president of the United States because he said a bunch of stuff that people didn't like. And it was not clear how it had violated the rules in any substantial way. Certainly no more than Ayatollah Khamenei or Louis Farrakhan or a wide variety of other deplorables around the world. But Donald Trump was banned because the tech bros decided that he was innately dangerous, and therefore he had to be banned until after the election.
Well, my first comment is, again, since we're back in time, my comments are also back in time at the same time of this video, basically, to an extent. So my comments might be a little bit dated, outdated, or perfectly dated, depending on my comments. Alright. I mean, he is kind of dangerous. He did incite or accidentally incited insurrection or attempted insurrection. Their intent was to insurrect the government, those who actually want to overthrow the government. Okay, let's put that to rest, please. Of the Capitol. So yeah, I mean, what would you expect to happen to him? And since these are private companies, they can do that, even though, yes, there seems to be a hypocrisy that they're like, okay, you let these basically terrorist groups and things of that nature on your platform, but not the, I think in this case was still current president, not sitting president, I could be wrong, but now current president, back then former, still current president, sitting president of the United States. Yeah, it is hypocritical, but I think the point stands. This was in January 7th. And I'm assuming right after January 6th, so I'm assuming they had a pretty good reason to ban him. I don't know if it was on YouTube or any other platform. I don't know about that. You have to look that up for yourself, but I think especially Facebook and Twitter. But, you know, it's tough, a little bit hypocritical, sure, but I mean, this was January 7th. I'm assuming right after January 6th. So, kinda makes sense. Hypocritical, sure. Makes sense, yeah. The premise still stands.
Or until after the inauguration. And then they just were like, okay, well, I guess we'll just leave him banned. Well, the Facebook Oversight Board made two decisions yesterday. One was the original ban appropriate? They said yes, based on the idea that Trump had said positive things about people doing violence, which, again, is an odd standard considering the entire Democratic Party came out in strong defense of people doing violence and looting during the summer last year.
Some, but most, if I'm correct, not everybody. You know, they're not a monolith. Okay, but especially now, it's like the Republican Party. Listen, if you're a Republican, I do have a lot of stuff to ask about your beliefs, because sadly, it seems like it's mainly Trump's party, because they're the ones who kind of running the show. But at least back then, I think you can at least say, okay, just because you're a Republican, it doesn't mean you're part of Trump's wing of the party. If not, it's basically Trump's party or cultural gang at this point. But now it's, I gotta ask, hey, what litmus tests? What do you think of Trump, Musk, all those things? I gotta, I don't want to necessarily, but it's like, hey, you have an R. You're probably the elephant. There's a lot of elephants in the room here, and I think we need to point them out. Just saying. But at least back then, maybe I could have been like, maybe not, but especially now, it's like, I gotta ask.
And continue, by the way, to defend a wide variety of criminals as long as they are in some sort of tussle with the police. And then the Facebook Oversight Board did what Facebook didn't want them to do, and they tossed the ball back to Facebook. So Facebook set up this oversight board specifically to avoid responsibility for these sorts of things. And then the oversight board was like, well, you can't suspend Trump indefinitely, so we're going to toss this back at you, and in 6 months or so, you will reevaluate whether Trump ought to be put back on the platforms. Now, all of this should frighten you, because the reality is that the rules are just an excuse for Facebook to kick off whoever they want to. YouTube, same sort of deal. You don't actually have to violate the...
Yeah, in a sense where you don't have to violate, but sometimes it's like you kind of violated, but you didn't know what you did. And this happens to left-wing people as well. Dylan Burns is a very famous example. He was kicked out of YouTube a little bit for something that he didn't know, like, what happened. I think it was because he showed the very weird, disgusting children's show from Hamas, I think. And I think that's what got him banned from YouTube, possibly. I think it was also Twitch. I think it was only Twitch, not YouTube, if I remember. Or his paying part of YouTube was kicked out a little bit, but I think he's back on, especially now. I think he's back on. I think that's what it was, but I don't know. He doesn't know. I think most people still don't know, but I think he's back. So it does not just happen to right-wingers or Christians or whatever. It happened to a lot of people. It's just YouTube just... all of it's run kind of by bots to an extent now. So it's like, what? Sarcasm,
Tools in order for public blowback to cause YouTube or Facebook or Twitter to throw you off the internet. And this is the real problem.
Well, here's the real problem. You still have OAN, Fox News, Newsweek, Newsmax, maybe even News Nation to an extent. You still have podcasts, and you're not, most of the time when right-wingers or Christians say that they're canceled, it's like, I can just look at your, you got millions of views and subscribers, but yet you're canceled apparently because you can't say particular words. Well, I'm sorry, that's kind of the rules, because I don't know if you know this, YouTube is used with, a lot of children use YouTube. A lot of children use YouTube, so they're like, you gotta say corn, not porn. I can say it because I'm paid only by Patreon and PayPal and other stuff. So, no ads here, no AdSense. It's only by you guys. If you want to pinch in, please pitch in. So you have better quality, and I can just go all without fear of loss of space and things of that nature. And a new laptop would be nice, maybe... but I understand times are tough, so can't pitch in. But if you're like, can I do anything? Subscribe, like, share. I know this is quite early, but I'm just saying I can say the P word without fear, because I'm not really entangled by YouTube, really.
And they like to say that all of this is algorithmic, And some of it is algorithmic, but somebody sets up the algorithms. And some of it is just not algorithmic at all. When you make the decision to ban the sitting president of the United States from social media, that is not a decision that is being made by a computer. That is a decision
Well, how do you know that, Ben?
that is being made by high-level people at the companies in question and in coordinated fashion. I kind of fail to see how it's not collusion, in fact, to see all of the social media companies all at once decide to ban the president of the United States the same way.
Because I think all of them somewhat have a similar TOS and guidelines, because most of them are similar, and most of them belong to the similar few people. So yeah, it kind of makes sense, because they are all at the same page. It's not really collusion, it's more of, they Dylan Burns said this way, people want a Tom Clancy novel, but once you get reality, it's kind of boring. People don't like boring. They like blood sports, because I won't say their lives are boring or meaningless, but, they like the spurg. So if you left, I understand why you didn't know. But the truth is, most of the social media companies have similar TOS and guidelines. Unless if it's like Rumble. Even then, Rumble has some TOS and guidelines. You can't have certain things on there either. It's maybe a little more freer, to say the F slur or whatever. That was literally an ad that Crowder did for Rumble. It's like, I can say the F slur. Finally, I can do that. And I'm like, if you want to be a pathetic loser, go to Rumble, I guess. I thought that was Rumble's official ad from Crowder. I'm like, hey, I guess if you want to be a pathetic person, I guess go to Rumble. I guess that's their pitch. You can say the F slur, which you can say on YouTube as well. You just get demonetized, if I'm correct. Not on Twitch. I think you'll get banned or something like that, possibly. So,
And by the way, to Alex Jones or Milo Yiannopoulos. Doesn't mean I agree with a lot of the things that are said by these folks, but the fact that social media have this sort of top-down control is pretty astonishing now.
And I do agree, to an extent, at least for Ben Shapiro, he shouldn't be canceled. Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, that's a tough one, I gotta be honest. That's a little bit of a tough one. I can kind of see why they've been banned on YouTube, especially Milo. It depends.
There's this widespread perception out there, and it's a real misperception, that the left and the right agree on this stuff. They don't. People on the right are angry at big tech because they believe that big tech has too much control over the dissemination of information, that big tech can be cudgeled and bullied by the mainstream media into basically shutting off all other sources of information. As I've discussed before,
to an extent, that is more Steelman argument. I think that is what some people believe that they're doing, but the actions, the fruits of what's going on is that it seems like the right, especially now, want free speech for me, but not for thee. They want to say whatever they want, basically, without any pushback, because pushback is cancellation, apparently, or rules or guidelines that you have to follow, because that's kind of how that works. It's the same thing for businesses, private businesses, especially private businesses. Some are okay with tattoos, some are not. Some are okay with cursing, some are not. That's, I understand the argument is that, well, social media is like basically the public square at this point. But like with Rumble, they're like, okay, we'll give you an alternative to YouTube that's that's less censorable, in a sense. You can say the F slur if you want to. I don't know why you would want to. I guess you can on Rumble. I'm not sponsored by Rumble, by the way. I'm not. Why would I be? Their advertisement is trash. They let Crowder say the F slur. They're like, join Rumble, you can do that too. I'm like, I won't join Rumble. Marketplace of ideas, folks. You just lost a customer. Maybe I'll do Rumble, but most likely not. Most likely will not. Never do Rumble. Maybe, but most likely not. That would not be the sales pitch for me. That would not be the sales pitch for me.
Real threat to establishment media is indeed social media. And the reason for that is because with the rise of the internet, you could now go to places like Fox News or Daily Wire if you wanted an alternative view of the news, or if you just wanted to hear news from a conservative perspective, or maybe see news covered that the establishment media wouldn't cover. And then, because social media became so big, people started consuming their news via social media. Now, you used to go directly to Fox News or directly to Daily Wire, and now most people get their news by going to Facebook and checking their news feed. Well, this created a sort of almost a sort of bottleneck in the pipeline for informational flow. And the establishment media saw this. They said, oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? It used to be that all information flowing out through the internet, through disparate means, you could go to this website here and this website over there, and it's very difficult to shut that off. But now, if everybody is getting their news through Facebook's news feed, well, what if we just, took that bottleneck and just kind of closed it? What if we just made sure the only things that could get through the bottleneck are the establishment media sources? And this is what the social media tech bros have been going along with.
I don't know. But I got some comments I need to catch up with. You're right. The left and right don't agree with canceling or cancel culture in the media. The right says it's kind of it's some kind of conspiracy theory, propagandize it, and the left tells the truth about censorship and cancel culture in media, but yet most want to cancel and censor everything that's bad, which you sadly can't really do. I guess in a sense, or purity culture, especially in the left, there's a lot of purity culture. Some on the right, but, basically, if you're out of the left, the right will join you, but if you say anything bad against Trump even once, you're cut off, so, tread wisely. Those who might be really travelers who are not of any side. Find your place on the enlightened centrist. No, I'm not enlightened centrist. I am center, left, right, conservative, or progressive, or liberal, depending on the topic. I know online leftists just left because I said the word liberal. It's tough. I said centrist, so a lot of right wingers are done now, I guess, with me, apparently. So they left, I guess, so it's just us folks. I don't know. Now, to be clear, Fox News does count as the mainstream media, especially now. I think Ben Shapiro would agree now since they've gone against Trump, or not, I don't know. Because it's one of the, if not the, top broadcasting channels. You can Google Fox News and Google conservative issues. You'll find Fox News anytime, pretty much, and other conservative media and networks. That is true as well. I think this might be a little bit for later on, but if not, then I'll just say it now. So pretty much you used to go to propaganda and conspiracy theories, so you went from that, aka Fox News, into Wire and Daily Caller, into the other side, CNN. Or you were like me, and were like, maybe I'm a C-SPAN nightly news with Lester Holt kind of guy. Or if I'm going to get info based on law, I would go to a law website or a website like laweducation.gov. I don't think that's an actual website, I don't know. Or something like that, or anything professional, not CNN or Fox News. I'm going to go to the departmentoflaw.gov or something like that. Oh, I don't know. They might have cut a lot of people. It might be burning right now, but maybe I can still go to them.
They set up this measure at Facebook.
In the future. I'm sorry, we're in the past, but like in the future, which is the present. If you remember the chair, we're still in the past. I remember time travel is confusing
they
sometimes.
Called sort of news authoritativeness, and the way they ranked that was if you're an establishment media source, then you were more authoritative, and if you were not an establishment media source, you were not. Which, of course, the conservatives.
Mainly because mainstream usually has some type of rules and standards. Not everything just flies by them. You still have to still do so. But the problem that he might not talk about, that conservatives and everybody, I think, has to an extent, is it seems like mainstream media is more focused on ratings and more views because they're trying to still compete with alternative media and online news that has somewhat overdone them. It might have gone better news or be a lot more faster than the mainstream news media. And so, that's the reality of the situation.
anathema because we look at CNN and we say these people report fake news and fake narratives on a fairly regular basis. Washington Post, same thing. New York Times, same thing.
Daily Wire, Fox
Facebook
News
has attempted to sort of outsource. They're constantly attempting to outsource all of this to outside groups. So what they will do is they'll say, well, to determine which news is authoritative, we'll go to fact checkers. But then the fact checkers are all left-wing fact checkers. It's like PolitiFact or Snopes and all the...
PolitiFact is fine. Snopes, I have to look up a little bit more on Snopes. We have to look at their methodology and see if they're fine. But not sponsored ground news, I've heard it's been quite great. It really gets news in the way you want it and see the bias of it thereof, which I think they're actually more third party than PolitiFact and Snopes. But I don't know, like, what? I want a right wing fact checker? Is that better? Like,
folks.
I think he would, on principle, disagree, but on action, I don't know.
Part of the left. And so Facebook basically outsourced its own perspective on free speech to a bunch of outside leftist groups. They tried to do this with the Facebook Oversight Board as well. And the Facebook Oversight Board basically said, look at that. Facebook did the right thing in the first place, but at a certain point, they're going to have to determine whether to permanently ban Trump or not. Okay, so the left's perspective is that the big problem with social media is that too much information is disseminated via social media. The right's perspective is that too little information is disseminated via social media.
My perspective is that information should flow on social media. There's certain things that shouldn't flow, obviously. I think most of us would agree with it. Just don't look at all my leftist laptop folders. Or some right-wingers' early comments about the girls. Oh boy. Ugh.
The right would prefer that there be a broader range of viewpoints that are allowed on social media. And the left would prefer, as always, that only their viewpoint be allowed on social media.
In a sense, on principle, I can see, but by fruit, I would say no. I think the right just wants their thing and their thing only. Well, the left also wants their thing and their thing only. To be blunt, let's be real here.
And they have basically cudgeled and bullied all of these companies into mirroring that perspective. Because if you look back at the history of social media, if you look back at the statements made by places like Twitter and Facebook when they first started, their main mandate was, we are going to allow more people to speak. And then it became, we are going to better the conversation. And by bettering the conversation, they meant that they were going to work on what you could see. They were going to make you a better person because your betters in Silicon Valley were going to determine what you could and could not see. And so this is...
And now they're like, we're going to get back to free thinking and not to push certain ideologies. Because they go back and forth as the ships of the world sift here and there because they're of the world. I'm like, if Democrat Gavin Newsom or somebody after Trump gets in the office, I wouldn't be surprised again if Mark Zuckerberg is like, listen, we've realized now a revelation that we need certain guidelines and certain steps and TOS. We're still for free thought, but we just think we need to come back a little bit, especially over the 4 years. Ignore the pictures I have with Trump to be at the table with Musk and all of them. I'm a totally different person now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I think a lot of us are like, they're not principled. They're just like, okay, it's shifting this way, I'm going to go this way. If it's just that way, I'm going to go that way. And if it's like, after Gavin Newsom's Republican, or maybe whoever, maybe DeSantis, or even Trump again, because it depends what MAGA will be like after Trump, and maybe some more better Republican. Here we go. Zuckerberg, we realized that the TOS and guidelines are a little bit too rough, so we're gonna release some of the rules, let them more relaxed. Just ignore those pictures I have with the Democrat or Gavin Newsom or whoever, come on, come on, folks.
You see from the left today in the aftermath.
Again, I think most people agree with me now. I think they'll just disagree on everything else. So we agree on that. We're stepping in the right direction, in a sense.
If Facebook is going to maintain that ban on Trump, the White House came out. I mean, it's truly dystopian stuff. The White House came out And they said, you know what? Big tech companies should go even further. They need to stop the misinformation. Now, this is...
Well, if I'm correct, kind of did happen under Biden a little bit, meaning they wanted a literal ministry of truth, but they were like, whoa, okay, let's backtrack on that. But they backtracked. Not the current administration, in the future, which is the president. Remember, in the future, the present time of the current administration of Trump, they banned AP and just they've done a lot of other things regarding free speech, going after political opponents. Seriously, I mean, Trump said it should be basically it's illegal. It's illegal what they're doing to me with the MSDNC, and it's illegal. Interesting speech there. He's got power now, though. And the Supreme Court has let him, and I think they regret it now. Oh, really? You do? Oh. Well, really? Let's catch up with my comments here. Well, there's some things in general that shouldn't really be on social media or the internet, like seeing violent propaganda just open to the public. No, we regulate things. You make sure things, I guess, and make sure things don't go too far. Yes, it doesn't work all the time like the justice system, but still works, and if there's a problem, we should change some things, if not reform the system or systems. Wait, didn't Crowder use Snopes to pretty much show that Joe Biden said something racist? And now, if I'm correct, Crowder is now actually against Snopes again? Conservatives nowadays just try to fit a narrative. They're very hypocritical because they're trying to fit a narrative. And when a website that they used until it doesn't fit within their narrative, they denounce that website, like Fox News, especially now, to an extent, even though all of them are getting hired by Trump. And they're ruining everything. This is what people like Crowder and some conservatives do, but yet they think that the left, at the end of the day, the left does do it sometimes, but not as much as the right now. And when they denounce websites, it's usually legitimate right now, and sometimes it's legitimate for the left, so sometimes. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a company, and companies change, and I know you hate change, but change happens. Either you try to stop it for some reason, in the good way, obviously. No violence. If it's a bad change, or you let the change happen, see what happens, or make your own. Do what conservatives used to kind of do. See if this works by debating about it, talking about it, see different views about it, and if it's good, then keep it. If it's bad, then throw it away. Counterpoints, me to an extent, are more, Burkean conservative, which, if I'm correct, conservatism was founded by, I think he's called Richard Burke. After the French Revolution, he saw that conservatism was still good to an extent, for obvious reasons, but he also understood that you can't just conserve in sake of conserving, or just conserve stuff that's bad. You gotta keep what's good and throw away the bad, which is a hashtag tweet that I've done, kind of a little bit of a tweet segment. But that's not for that. But if you do want to see how I tweet, you can support my sponsors. Which, speaking of sponsors, here's a word from my sponsors. My sponsors are you guys, those who support me on PayPal or Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So if you want to see how I tweet stuff, you know what to do. Go to Patreon.
Dangerous, because the White House, you may have noticed, is a government agency. This is the executive branch of the most powerful government in world history. And the executive branch is saying, We want all of these social media companies, who are the chief mechanism by which information is now disseminated, we want them actively to crack down on things we deem misinformation.
Especially
That's important
now.
to note here, that the left has made a move linguistically from disinformation to misinformation. You remember just a few years ago, 2016, there was a lot of talk about Russian disinformation. Well, the term disinformation has a specific meaning. Disinformation means a foreign government is putting out false information in order to bamboozle or hoodwink Americans and pervert the political process.
Which they
That's what disinformation
are still
is.
doing.
The United States engages in disinformation campaigns against foreign regimes too, right? This is just something that happens in international politics. And there's certainly a strong case to be made that if Facebook knows that the Russians are disseminating disinformation, that they should shut that down. It's a foreign government attempting to affect American elections, for example. But there's a difference between disinformation and misinformation. By shifting one letter and conflating the two, now you can just declare anything you don't like misinformation. So Hunter Biden's story, maybe it's misinformation. And this is the way that the White House views this sort of stuff. Pointing out that Joe Biden's agenda is extraordinarily radical. Well, that's misinformation. We can't allow that sort of misinformation to thrive. Even when people say things from an American perspective, right, that are not true. Right? If Donald Trump says that voter fraud and irregularity 100% decided the election, we won in that kind of stuff, even if that's not true, to suggest that that is akin to a Russian source promoting active disinformation is not right. I mean, Donald Trump does have a First Amendment right to say things that are objectively untrue. That is not banned by the First Amendment.
Agreed. And you and a lot of our fingers have done that and can still continue to do with your millions of subscribers, if not millions of views sometimes. But again, you're not canceled.
You do have the right in the United States to say things that, in your own viewpoint, you think are true, even if they are not true. And that holds true on both sides. Right? I've never called for Ibram X. Kendi, who's a grifter par excellence, to be banned from social media, even though he routinely says things that are wildly untrue, because that's fascistic. You don't get to use the means of the government in order to push that. So what they've done is instead they've shifted over the onus to these corporations. They're working hand in glove with these corporations, and they're basically saying to the corporations, we'll leave you alone. You can have your monopoly. In fact, we will promote your monopoly so long as you do exactly what we want.
And it seems like the Trump administration is trying to do that in the future, present. I'm trying, folks. I'm trying to remember I'm back in time. This is a time traveling episode of my podcast. Welcome. Welcome. I should be caught up, but okay. Alright. About to catch up now. It's like Fox News and Daily Wire saying Trump incited violence. No, that's not misinformation. Trump says hateful things to Chinese people, aka anti-Asian hate. No, that's not misinformation. Well, how do you know that's not misinformation? Because fake news, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think this comment made any sense. I think what I was trying to say, the old me, I think was trying to say if the WR and Fox News said that Trump did incite violence, that wasn't misinformation. And I think those who say it could have because fake news was not a good argument. I don't know, past me. I don't know about that one.
Turn these corporations into agencies of the federal government and then used those corporations in order to shut down the First Amendment in a way they could not do directly. If the federal government were to legislate that information they don't like had to be shut down by social media, that would be illegal. If the federal government threatens Facebook that they are going to regulate them in some way, if Facebook does not do that, then the claim is that's not illegal, that's just good governance. So here's Jen Psaki from the White House saying we hope that they go further in fighting misinformation.
The president's view is that the major platforms have a responsibility related to the health and safety of all Americans to stop amplifying untrustworthy content, disinformation and misinformation, especially related to COVID-19, vaccinations, and elections. And we've seen that over the past several months. Broadly speaking, I'm not placing any blame on any individual or group. We've seen it from a number of sources.
Okay.
you can still admit and say that the government has some interest in making sure something like a, disease, you get the right information, and to make sure that, hey, we're just saying that you private companies have a little bit some of responsibility here, especially when it comes to COVID-19, to try to make sure the truth is there because lives are at stake. I think you could pull a Palpatine and be like, well, for security and for peace, I must become a dictator for you all, which Trump seems like he's trying to do, by the way. But in the future, current Trump administration. I think you guys know what I mean when I mention second Trump administration. I'm talking about future, present, because we're in the past, because Mandalorian chair, we're in the past. In a sense. Man, this is going to be an interesting episode. But point is that's a seal, man. But I think I can see just like the government seems to be a little bit overreaching here, really trying to. I mean, listen, you can see it as for the sake of protection, but that's what Palpatine also said, so it's like I can kind of see what you mean, Ben, here, past Ben a little bit. I can agree with past Ben, I can definitely agree with future Ben now in some, not all, but some things. So, and I think Jan Psaki was fired because she went a little bit too political at some things. Yeah, good times when there was accountability and trying to be nonpartisan in the press briefings. Not now. You guys know what I mean by now. Now, with Caroline Leavitt, I have nicknames for all of the cabinet, but Caroline Leavitt, she would have been fired if she was appointed by Biden, but, man, I miss the days of accountability, but, who knows? Caroline Leavitt, if she might get fired, who knows? And, I would say 80-95% chance she keeps her job, sadly. Respectfully. I'm not saying she should get out of the job, but even if she was, I'm sure Fox News or OAN or somebody will pick her up quite quickly, like MSNBC did with Jan Psaki. Shocker. She always shocked people. She was like, no, the Hyde Amendment. Disappeared. She was replaced by a black lesbian who did really great, by the way. I'm sorry I forgot her name, but her name's sometimes hard to pronounce if I'm correct. She did her best. I think she was one of the best press secretaries, to be honest. I also liked Sarah Huckabee. She did not pull punches, but especially now I'm like, why would you say that? But back then I was like, yeah, go get him. You know what to do. So, I would say I got like a top 3. The black lesbian. Respectfully, I don't remember her name. The black lesbian, maybe Sarah Huckabee, and Jen Psaki, or replace Jen Psaki and Huckabee. They're fighting for second place as of now. Caroline Leavitt. That place. Caroline, you gotta do better. Gotta do better. You actually gotta tell the truth for once. You can't be in the same reality. Okay, you gotta. Alright? That's all I ask.
Okay, the responsibility of these big tech companies to quote unquote stop misinformation. Number one, that's just not true. It's not true. Okay, these big tech companies are platforms. The whole point of them is that it is not their job to police what's in the comments. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act was specifically designed to protect companies so that those companies would not be held liable legally for the stuff posted on their website. So now they're just reversing this. Right now they're going to say that Facebook ought to be held responsible for stuff that a third party posts on Facebook, which completely defeats the purpose of open threads. It defeats the purpose of comment sections. It defeats the purpose of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. It destroys them wholesale. If they are responsible for the material that appears on their platforms, then this means that they are effectively the same as the New York Times or the Daily Wire. They're just editorial sites. That's number one. Number two, when she says that we want them to crack down on misinformation with regard to COVID and elections, Let's just note here that the Biden administration has routinely lied about both COVID and elections. The Biden administration has suggested over and over and over again that Georgia's new voter laws are Jim Crow. That is an overt lie. It is an abject, disgusting, overt lie. Those laws are in many ways more permissive with regard to voting than, for example, New York or New Jersey. There's no one who has a shred of sanity who believes that those laws look anything like Jim Crow. The great lie that Democrats have been promoting, that voter suppression has been deciding elections, it is a lie. But they don't want that lie shut down. They want that lie promulgated. They want that lie promoted. They want it trumpeted from the highest rooftops so they can pretend to black Americans that the GOP is trying to shut down their rights.
Well, I mean, especially now, they are trying to shut down our rights, anti-DIAI, Jackie Robertson, and Nola Gay, if I'm correct, recently, and yes, this is true, ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration, second Trump administration, time traveling's weird, has recently unbanned, I think if I'm correct, it was federal contracts from doing segregation or things of that nature. They are rolling back civil rights, folks. They are rolling back civil rights. I'm sorry. That is happening. That is a fact. That is what's going on here in the second Trump administration. I wish we can actually go back to the past sometimes, but I understand it seems like God does not want that for obvious reasons. He's seen the movies, or he's seen the possibility of the movies, and he's like, yeah, I agree. Not saying he's on, watching. No, I'm assuming even before time traveling movies, God was like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna let you guys have that type of power. I don't know, man. Mankind. I don't know, man. Humankind. We have that limit on you. We meaning not multiple gods. Like, I'm God saying I'm just gonna put that limit there. Better. Alright, better. That's a better way to say it. Now let's catch up with some comments here, shall we? Yes, indeed. What's not protected in the First Amendment is inciting violence. Trump did incite violence, or accidentally incited violence, and also in his 2016 rallies, violence broke out, and he encouraged it, the fighting, and there he made unfunny jokes about, like, sorry, I'll pay for damages. That's not... What? These tech companies are private companies, and companies in general tend to have an interest, especially what happened on January 6th. And now, they're really sometimes trying too much to not let misinformation and disinformation go in their companies. That's what they do. Yeah, companies are run by humans. You're going to have mistakes. They're run by AI. They're going to have a bunch of mistakes. We see that now with the anti-DEI from the government. Not saying that big tech companies are right about everything. I'm not defending big tech at all. But I kind of do work with big tech because I'm on YouTube, and you're on YouTube as well, Ben. So I can't just bash all of big tech, but generally, some things are bad, and say could be more better. And again, it's a company. I'm not afraid of YouTube. Maybe back then I was, because I didn't understand the full things of YouTube, but now I do. So past me was a little bit afraid, but not anymore. I'm not afraid. So being responsible, as in making sure that death threats won't be on their websites, or threats of insurrection or violence against particular groups, the responsibility for that, not to be on their websites. They're not being free. They're controlled by communist, socialist, leftist, corporatist, big government. If that's that, then sign me up to be a communist, socialist, leftist, corporatist, big government person. Then, because I would like websites to protect particular groups and people in general from hate. Yeah, well, where's the dotted line? If that's all that, then fine. Of course, it's not that. It's just companies. I don't want to stay companies. Want to keep their company privileges because there's just some things you can't do on the private companies of social media. Obviously.
So those sorts of lies they want promoted. It just depends on the misinformation. And when it comes to COVID, I can't think of a bigger purveyor of COVID misinformation than this administration. They keep just saying stupid crap that makes no sense about masking and outdoor standards and the efficacy of the vaccines. It's just ridiculous on every level. But this is the going push by the folks on the left. The going push is shut down dissemination of information. It's what they want. This is authoritarian stuff.
And I think some leftists would do that. Some of them were called tankies. Well, a lot of right-wing people, or at least extreme right-wing people, who sadly seem to be the loud minority of right-wing people, definitely want that though. So,
new book coming out called The Authoritarian. Then the actual destroy your ability to disseminate information, to see information. Who is Secretary of State and Senator from New York and nearly the President of the United States, she's out there saying, yeah, I know this is great. Big tech needs to shut down Trump.
Rules, but let's start with governments.
In places like Germany for speech they're not held liable for, basically do this stuff voluntarily that we don't like. Adam Schiff, one of the great purveyors of misinformation for years, right? I mean, this douchebag was on MSNBC every single day talking about how the other shoe was going to drop. It was going to come out that Trump was actually peeing on Russian prostitutes, or they were peeing on present is we want to use the methods of informational dissemination to shut down our political opponents. We want to threaten them to do it. We're going to threaten these companies in order to make that happen and give them special privileges and pat them on the head if they're good little boys and girls. It's insanity. But we're told that the authoritarianism is on the right. The hell it is. By one of the reasons that the left wants to keep focusing on January 6th, because January 6th was really terrible. It was a terrible, terrible event for the country. But the reason they want to keep their focus on January 6th is to overlook the fact that the reaction to January 6th on the left is significantly more authoritarian than the actual effect of January 6th. On January 6th, a bunch of authoritarians went in and tried to overturn the legitimate results of an election. That's true. And it was like several hundred idiots, and then they were immediately cleared out, and then a bunch of Republicans certified the election.
And my comment to that is, if an insurrection was just a bunch of stupid people with some authoritarians, or a couple of 100 stupid people doing stupid things, then last summer, in some of 2019, the rioting and looting, those are all stupid people that did stupid things, and if we do your logic, then why should we call those insurrections then? I agree, and the rioting and looting was not an insurrection, but I would say some of it could have been, like destroying police cars or trying to storm into police departments. That could be, in a sense, insurrection. You can be trying to overthrowing parts of the government structure, which is law enforcement, which I would say the left is trying to imagine a world where we don't need them. And some even say don't trust them. Now, to an extent, I do agree. Sometimes you can't necessarily trust cops. It just depends where you are. But the idea of trying to eliminate law enforcement is legitimately just a totally different views of what you think. It could be theological sometimes, but I think it's mainly the steel man is we shouldn't need to enforce laws if in a way the police officers do. We should do it somehow better, but it's like, I guess the best way to say it is we live in a fallen world theologically, and in a sense way, you always in a sense way have people who struggle, and you also just have people who want to do crime. Some people are just evil. The left disagrees with this, but the right does. And so with that, law enforcement in a sense way will always be here. Now, can it be done better? Yes. Could it be lessened depending on what it is? Yes. Could you start having your own type of accountability sort of community, which will basically be cops? Sure. Replace cops with cops that you know. That could be good or could be bad. Could cause corruption, like we've seen police like you can say, technically speaking, the police is law enforcement of people that you used to know or do know, because where you think we get police from people. So, but the point is, it's like you're always gonna need cops, and the fact to insurrect, cops try to overthrow a part of a government, or part of a state government, or a federal government, the police, is somewhat insurrectional. I don't know that's a real word, but you get what I mean if I'm getting that word insurrection correct here.
It was over. The major institutions in American life.
I mean, it wasn't over, and Trump still says it's rigged, and I think they still want to do an investigation against a free and fair election that, like any election, has fraud, but it wasn't enough to overthrow the election, like 2016, like 2024.
Most powerful institutions in American life.
In the future, I'm assuming. Actually, I'm from the future, so I'm not assuming. Getting that right, I think.
Are attempting to destroy your ability to disseminate information, to see information. They are attempting to destroy your ability to raise your child as you see fit. They are looking to destroy your business if you fail to comply with their woke standards.
This sounds very familiar. Just replace woke with loyalty. You replace how you want to live with how you want to live, or who you want to identify as, because we're literally having people stranded in other countries because America's denying Americans passports because they're trans.
The authoritarian movement in the United States is not chiefly from the right. This doesn't mean there aren't authoritarians on the right. There are. But the authoritarian movement in the United States, the dangerous authoritarianism that we experience in everyday life and at every level of American society, is coming from the institutional heads inside Blue America. Like, I don't know what to say about the fact that Hillary Clinton, who is Secretary of State and Senator from New York and nearly the President of the United States, she's out there saying, yeah, no, this is great. Big tech needs to shut down Trump, or we should shut down big tech. Okay, this is just authoritarian stuff.
There must be a reckoning by the tech companies for the nation ecosystem that is absolutely essential for the functioning of any democracy. And it's going to be up to governments, and I would even hope some global rules, but let's start with governments, to try to rein in the disinformation on the social media platforms.
First of all, that should scare the living hell out of you. When Hillary Clinton and Democrats start talking about global governance, what, we want employees' input on how information gets disseminated? This is one of the big problems for Facebook. Facebook is a global company. What they should be doing is promulgating First Amendment American standards. They are not. They're seeking explicitly to have other governments regulate them because they don't know what to do, because otherwise they're held liable in places like Germany for speech they're not held liable for in places like the United States. So when you say when Hillary Clinton...
No, and my comment for that is that, well, I think I get it since Facebook did originate from America, but this is just the fallacy of origin. Just because it originated from America doesn't mean it's American. It's not. Facebook is not American. Neither is Facebook or Twitter is a lot American. It's still not American somewhat. And Instagram, in my comment specifically, is they're international companies. There is Facebook, most likely, in France, obviously. Facebook isn't American. Facebook is universal. Same thing with YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. If I'm correct, Snapchat as well. And if I'm correct, TikTok as well. These aren't American companies. These are just companies who might originate from America, besides TikTok. But we might have like a little bit of a cutting of half. Trump cuts it in half and half of it belongs to America. It's still somewhat international because everybody else does it. So what these companies, social media companies, do is they obviously have to follow the rules of those lands. They don't need to promote First Amendment-ism in a sense. They should do what companies do with other countries and follow them if they want the company alive in that country to make money because they're part of the world, ultimately. Not saying Christians can't use them. I'm just saying that ultimately they're of the world. Don't trust them. They're not your savior. They're not Jesus Christ. But I think we all deserve a commercial break, so I will be right back. Alright, this is not just some sponsor or Patreon plug. It's about following him, the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you want to follow him, if you want to give your life to Christ today, prayer is in the description down below. But if you're a backslider and you want to rededicate your life to Christ, prayer is in the description down below for you. But if you want the gift, the free gift that Jesus Christ can only give, Jesus is the only Holy Ghost baptizer. If you want to be baptized in the Holy Ghost with the evidence of speaking in tongues, prayer is in the description down below. It might be way up there, way down there in the description. Just depends on how long my description is for my show, my podcast. So, if you want to give your life to Christ, or if you're backslider, you want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, those prayers are in the description down below. But if you forgot about it, or if you're wrestling with it, and you finally decided, okay, I am going to get saved, or okay, I am going to rededicate my life to Christ, or okay, I am going to be baptized in the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, all of those three prayers are in all of my videos. From the first one to this one, and to the ones to come, all of those three prayers are in the description down below for all of my videos. So if you do forget, or if you are wrestling with it, and you finally decided, okay, I am going to do this, whether it's giving your life to Christ, rededicating your life to Christ, or being baptized in the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking in tongues, those three prayers are always in the description down below in every video that I make.
International global standard on free speech?
It is a global standard on free speech. Yeah, I think that the ideal would be that. Yeah, that would be great, actually. that would be great. How to do that, though, I think will just kind of depend. It'll just.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. The idea that government's job is to rein in the dissemination of information is precisely the reverse of the First Amendment. It is precisely the opposite of the First Amendment. And the fact that they've gotten all of these social media companies to basically do this stuff voluntarily under threat just demonstrates that essentially they're using these major corporations as their agents. And we are now operating not in a free market capitalist America with regard to social media. We are operating in a corporatist America with regard to social media, where they are given special privileges by the government, and then the government tells them, all you have to do is implement standards that we like about information that we don't like. Adam Schiff, one of the great purveyors of misinformation for years, right? I mean, this douchebag was on MSNBC every single day talking about how the other shoe was going to drop. It was going to come out that Trump was actually peeing on Russian prostitutes, or they were peeing on him, and all of this was all Russian collusion. The evidence would show up sooner or...
It'll happen one day, Shift. No, I don't think it's true, but I do think maybe Putin does maybe have something on Trump at this point, or at least the Saudi prince. So, what do I do? Anything for the prince? What do I do? Anything for the prince? Oh, what do I do? Anything for the prince? Do I do anything for the prince? They got something on him, do they? I'm sorry. Or they like, hey, we'll give you a lot of money. We'll give you a lot.
Here is Adam Schiff saying that he hopes that the ban from Facebook is permanent on Trump. Of course he does.
The president here.
Yeah, Schiff's kind of a little bit of a radical on some things. But other things I'm like, great. But other things I'm like, oh, I'm going to shift this way, Adam. No offense.
Continuing to go out and push the big lie about the election, continuing, I think, to endanger our democracy by doing that. And so he continues to make the case that he would violate the policies if they readmitted him. And I think, frankly, pathologically, he's incapable of changing. So this is a temporary ban. It will likely be, if we're fortunate, a permanent ban, because the president is not going to stop the lies about the last election or lies about the next one. He will incite people.
I swear.
The past me might get this wrong, but I can kind of see what past me was trying to say. But it like if he keeps breaking their guidelines in terms of services, it's like your services will no longer be required. We will no longer serve you as a platform to do stuff with if you're going to keep breaking those terms of our services. So, in that sense, it does make sense, but I think past me was a little bit too far here. Here's my comment. Past me's comment, I should say. Isn't? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't agree with everything with shipped. Same thing with Democrats and some people in Congress, but in this case, I do agree with them. If Trump's not going to stop inciting violence and doing conspiracy theories and lies, about a lot of things like the 2020 election and other things, then he should be banned. Maybe even permanently. Not saying that he should be banned permanently, but there's a lot of evidence to say that, yeah, maybe he should. I was kind of being conflicted there. I think mainly not for the conspiracy theories or lies about the 2020 election. Now, inciting violence, I think he's kind of not really have done that recently. Even, he's the president now, so, it seems like he can do whatever he wants. Courts, what are you doing? You gotta have a backbone. You gotta say no. You gotta maybe even be like, hey, all right, I'll order you to stop, or hey, we might have to send some people. Like, I pray that doesn't happen. Jesus Christ, name man, because we do not need that. But the courts, you gotta have a backbone. Like, you have a spine. You gotta check the executive here. But point I would mainly see is past me. No, I would disagree with you on the conspiracy theories and lies. You can lie and do conspiracy theories to still incite violence or things of that nature. But it depends on the TLS. Maybe your conspiracy theories and lies are not part of the services in a particular platform. Maybe not. I would say that's wrong. Is that against the First Amendment? No, that's a private company. Just like with AP, the White House has the right to not have AP as part of the press regarding the White House. I think it's a bad move. It seems kind of antithetical to laws of they've been saying about free speech, but that's not prohibiting or establishing speech thereof via from the government. In a sense, if I'm correct. So they do have their right to do that. I don't like it, but they do have the right to do it. Now, what Trump wants to do regarding mainstream media, it might be against the First Amendment. You are trying, in some way, to prohibit speech and establish speech thereof to an extent. Establish the speech that you want and prohibit the speech that you don't want from the government via executive orders, via law, via enforcement of the government. That is anti-free speech. That is against the First Amendment. Legally. Because there's a difference between the legal aspect and the idealistic aspect of free speech.
I want to hear about authoritarianism from a group of people who are using their perch in government to attempt to literally stop a political opponent from being able to speak. And that is the essence of authoritarianism. What you're watching right now from the White House, from Congress, from Hillary Clinton, from this whole cadre of the mainstream establishment left, is we want to use the methods of informational dissemination to shut down our political opponents. And we want to threaten them to do it. We're going to threaten these companies in order to make that happen and give them special privileges and pat them on the head if they're good little boys and girls. It's insanity. But we're told that the authoritarianism is on the right. The hell it is. By the way, not to be self-serving here, but the reality is this is one of the reasons why you should go subscribe to the services that you love right now. Because at any moment, this entire tsunami of authoritarianism nonsense could be pushed against anybody, including places you like.
Including me, including David Pacman, including Brian Taylor Cohen. I think a lot of people have seen the list of people that Trump might want to take out via taking their YouTube channel out. It was Cenk Uygur, Brian Taylor Cohen, David Pacman, and a lot of others. who have criticized him a lot. David Pakman recently had to stop saying something about a particular famous congressperson that he didn't say because it would be bad to say it. That has happened on the left. Just saying. Now, that's why a lot of them have been saying, hey, here's my Substack. At least Brian Terry Cohen and David Patman are like, hey, if they take us out, you can still read our newspaper, Substack, things of that nature. I'll say at this point, I encourage you guys to support them because they are more threat than I am at this point. But at least for me with God, if he's for me, who can be against me? But still, so Ben, I would agree. Support the people who you like. Subscribe to them. Subscribe to me, just in case. We're almost half of the year done of year one of Trump's supposed to be 4 years of the last term that he has. But people want a third term for him, which is wrong, by the way.
Against Daily Wire. It could be pushed against my show. Go subscribe right now over at Daily Wire because...
Or subscribe to me.
Again,
because
you want to protect the content that you love. Because I don't trust these people, do you? I don't trust these tech companies are going to stand up to the overwhelming tsunami of authoritarian nonsense being pushed by the establishment left. Yeah, this is the establishment.
Trump, now.
This is not... And it's amazing how...
Yeah, it's not even the extreme... It's not the Fuentes, folks. It's Trump. It's the current president of the United States here.
The liberal movement caved in the United States to this insane, censorious left. How many liberals are left to stand up to this? How many liberals still stand for the original principles of like the ACLU? How many people still believe? I remember in the 90s, people used to say I'm left all the time. This was their great civil liberties moment. They would say things like, I may not agree with you, but I will defend to the death your right to say what you want to say. Right? You remember dissent is the height of patriotism? You remember this during the Iraq War? No longer. Now, according to the establishment left, you disagree with us, and we will find a way to shut you down. Including, by the way, the sitting president of the United States at the time. We will find a way to stop you from speaking. And it would be one thing if they had any sort of articulable standard that is consistently applied, but there is no articulable standard that's consistently applied.
Especially
the Biden administration routinely lies. The Biden administration routinely says things that are untrue. Democrats, members of the media, have openly defended acts of violence depending on who is committing the acts of violence. None of them...
And not necessarily, but for some radicals, which is the main problem, there's two problems on the Democratic side mainly. Sometimes not read... Three. Sometimes not reading the room, like they recently did with the... I have to agree with Trump here, the idiotic reporter who were like, so I know we just saw... I know we just saw dead bodies of the supposed white genocide, but how do you feel about the Qatar corruption? Like, right after dead bodies, right after is like, how do you feel about the Qatar corruption? Which is true, by the way, but it's like, dude, read the room. Read the weird racist. How come you haven't do this to Putin or Netanyahu about the genocide stuff? Room, bud. And to be specific, because I gotta be careful, I don't know. Genocide for Putin. Netanyahu, I don't like some of his stuff regarding killing babies. Gaza and Palestinian babies. You can say that, oh, sorry, that's the cost of war, but I don't think so, and it seems like he does want to move a lot of people, what seems to be like ethically cleansing. I'm not trying to be careful to be like, oh, I'm a coward, but I'm just saying... Also, there's a lot of debate about the genocide of what's happening with Gaza, which I can see as a genocide, and I would say it is maybe a genocide, but I just want to know, the best I can say is they're ethically cleansing people. If not a straight-up possible genocide, but it's definitely a genocide with Putin, that's not argued. But again, he does that for the African person, but not for Putin or Netanyahu. I don't know, Trump, that seems weird, but yes. Going back, they didn't read the room. The Democrats were like, see corruption with Qatar. He's talking about it. I'm like, did the reporter, did you not see what all of us saw? it looks bad. That's the first. Not reading the room, Democrats. 2, right message, wrong messenger. Big deal. Kamala Harris was not necessarily the right person for the message, because the messenger was wrong. And 3, not really addressing your extremes. Your extremists. When it comes to Hamas, and when it comes to that person who went from that immigrant who seems to be innocent from El Salvador, like, you got to explain. You gotta be like, listen, we're for getting rid of the bad guys and put them in El Salvador, but we're against people like Kamal Khalif, who seems to just trying to be deported for speech, it seems. But they're not giving people why they're doing stuff like that. So it does look like you're just letting your radicals just run over you, moderate Democrats, to an extent. Slotkin, disagree with a lot of things, but, seems somewhat relatable, respectfully. I'm just saying. So is Bernie Sanders and AOC. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them competes, for 2028. I think will be really great. I don't know if AOC is old enough yet to run for president. I don't know. I think she's, 28, 29? I don't know. I think you have to be at least 32 if I'm correct. So those are the 3 things: not reading the room, right message, wrong messenger, and not handling your extremist. The big problem with Republicans is idolatry, MAGAism, and worshiping Trump. That's basically it. It's mainly just loss of principle. You don't have principles. You're not really a party. You're just a gang now, Republicans. About Republicans, you gotta stand up. You gotta.
And
which it seems like they kind of are, especially with the Qatar corruption, even Ted Cruz of all people. But we don't know how long that'll be. We just don't know.
Power. It's so funny. The entire deconstructionist movement, sort of philosophical deconstructionist movement, is about the idea that there are no centralizing principles. Everything is just a power game. Right?
So I have a comment with that. Yes, we used to say I don't agree with you, but I would fight for the right for you to say it. But now things have changed over time, of the 4 years of Trump and years in general. Things change over time. Now in this case, in some cases, I can't just say I would fight for the right for you to say it. Well, what to do, say it, well, something what to do, want to say, because maybe you want to say something that incites violence against particular people and people in general. I would say in general I would fight for the right for Ben Shapiro to say what he wants to say, but it depends on what he wants to say. Will I fight for it? Maybe not. Will I say, depending on what it is, I don't like it, but it's fine? Yeah. Will I fight for it? Possibly. It just depends.
People talk about freedom and equality. When people talk about the principles of the Declaration of Independence, they're lying. And really, all that was a guise for power. It's all just a facade, right? It's a way for rich white men to cram down their own version of the system. It's all projection. Okay, deconstructionism from the establishment left is just projection, because for them, there are no universal principles. It is just about power. There are no universal principles that apply to your rights. There are no universal principles that apply to the level of misinformation that can be disseminated. There's nothing consistent here. It is just about what they can get away with and what kind of power they can use in order to apply pressure. That's all. And that's authoritarian. There's no other word for it.
And with that comment, I can say, and with this comment, I can say the same thing with political conservatism. The fact that they just want power for the sake of conserving power for them. Just like they want to conserve sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, racism, etc. All the other things that I miss that they want to conserve, just for the sake of conserving that tradition. So yeah, I could say the same thing for your side, not saying I'm on the left. I'm definitely not, especially online leftists. I'm not on them. I just said liberal, so I also said centrist, so some people on the alt-right have left as well, so just us. Wait, is it a time loop? No, it's not a time loop. I think I fixed it, folks. I'm just saying that I can say the same thing on your side. And I think, yeah, what Ben said is somewhat true, and what I said is definitely true, not just because I said it, but because it is true. That's the universal principle there. That I agree with. The truth is the truth, no matter where it is, where it comes from.
Now, again, they've renormalized America's institutions in order to silence everyone they disagree with, and they're doing it with big tech right now. And so for people on the right who are like, yeah, there's a wide right-left agreement that we need to shut down big tech. No, they disagree for completely different. They don't like big tech for completely different reasons. The right wants big tech to consistently apply any standard, hopefully a very broad free speech standard. The left wants to simply run these companies. The left simply wants to make sure that you cannot speak, that you cannot share, that you are not allowed to have organic reach with the stories that you push, that you never see the information they don't want you to see. Most obvious example being that Hunter Biden story. The New York Post Twitter account shut down a month before the election because of a true Hunter Biden story. Facebook shutting it down, preventing the dissemination of even the link. You couldn't even link to it. And
if I'm correct for that, they were kind of wrong with it, but I think mainly it was because it was against TOS, because it was showing Biden's, not just Biden's bedroom, not just Hunter Biden's bedroom, but a lot of other things about Hunter Biden that Biden credit was against the TOS of Facebook, so they did take it down, but the FBI did feel like it was or disinformation, but it wasn't. It was somewhat true to an extent, but it's been overblown by the right so much that it's hard to know the full truth about the laptop from Biden's bedroom.
This is the next move. What you will see is that now that Donald Trump has started his quasi-blog on his page, the next move by Twitter and Facebook will be...
I think he's talking about Truth Social or Truth Central.
You are not allowed to tweet any link from that blog. Because again, this is not about freedom. It is not about protecting democracy. These folks don't give a damn about democracy. Are you kidding me? They want to completely rewrite the rules of the game. They want to completely federalize every election procedure in the United States. They want to make ballot harvesting legal. They want to make sure that voter ID cannot be put into law. And then they want to cram a bunch of seats into the Senate in an undemocratic fashion in order to stack the system in favor of their own political priorities. They don't give a damn about democracy.
To an extent, some of those things are true, but I can say the same thing with Republicans with voter suppression and just all the stuff that Trump's been doing. A lot of Republicans seem to just be like, I kind of support it, or like, I wish I can say, and I don't, but I don't want to get primaried to the ground. Well, since Elon Musk has been kind of not really involved anymore, I think now the primary to the ground may not work. Even then, Elon Musk try to pay his way to win an election for Republicans. It did not work for him, and his candidate lost big time. And a lot of Democrats are winning, but you can't stop the winning. There is a little blue wave happening even now, and even internationally. Romania, Australia. So it's like, man, 2026, it's almost there, folks. I don't think it's going to be so good for Republicans. Might be good for the Democrats. We'll see.
The procedures of the Constitution. It's all just a power game. In the end, it's all about power for the establishment left. There are no principles. If you're a believer that there are principles from the same people who are saying that misinformation has to be shut down on the internet, but we can lie as much as we want, I don't know what to tell you. They're unprincipled. It is just power. The entire administration approach to COVID and vaccines and masking is absurd. It's absurd on its face. We have now run into what people are calling the demand wall with regard to vaccination. What that means is that there's way more supply than demand. Right? There's a lot of supply. The supply was ramped up by Trump, and Biden continued that. Biden is the luckiest man ever to be elected president, not only because he's not sentient, but also because he inherited an entire vaccination program, an entire rollout program, and then he gets credit for it. Okay, so in any case, a huge number of Americans have already...
Well, now he does take credit for it because Trump supporters don't want to take credit from it because they hate vaccines now, apparently.
Vaccinated. Right now, we are going from like 3 million vaccinations a day down to like 1 million. Why? Well, number one, the people who wanted it the most already went and got it. And number two, they're now running into what's called the demand wall. One of the reasons for the demand wall, the reason that people are not out there clamoring for the vaccine, is because if you are vaccine hesitant, there is no incentive being promoted by this administration to get the vaccine. Like none. They're not telling you can go back to regular life, which you can, scientifically speaking. Okay, they're not telling you that after you get that second vaccine dose and you're 2 weeks out, you can unmask. Which, again, the data...
Now, these are outdated information because It's been a long time. I just want to point that out there.
That you can do this. I name a single study, one study, that's all I ask, one study demonstrating that the vaccinated are passing this virus in any significant numbers. There are no studies to support that.
Since most of this stuff is this way outdated information, because this has been a long time ago, and certain people might say, yes, maybe that was a mistake or not, or some still held to those statements that they make. It's basically some things are like, yeah, I disagree with that Fauci or this person here, but I get why they meant that, or no, they were right in this case, things of that nature. So, basically, again, the point is to protect others and yourself, but again, conservatives don't, this is my comment by the way, they don't really care about others or themselves sometimes, and life itself, because they want to conserve almost anything, even conserving ideas that could cause death. So I'm not surprised that they're against protecting people, because sadly, that's what they do. That's what some representatives, like, I think, Rhonda Sanchez, not to go after this person, but just to spell it out, because I think I might have said it wrong. Rhonda Sanchez? I think I'm saying that wrong again. RHONDASANSHEZ are doing, he's, if I'm correct, taking down mandates and things that were protecting people, but, they're taking it down because it's been a year. Because, pandemics are so last year. And so, pretty much near the end of Ben Shapiro's video, he was saying the typical stupid, I may not say stupid, typical conservative talking points about how businesses are better than people and how businesses should be more important than people, and yes, how businesses are more valuable than people. And it's kind of ironic because conservatives and Republicans tend to say stuff like they're the party of life, they value life in and out of the womb, they value children more than Democrats and the left, which in some cases I can see. In some cases I can definitely not see, because of the Nazis that they have. But, and also, I think recently in Texas, of course, most likely will not have a car, but you can look it up. It was one of sources videos. I think a brain, I think continue on the pregnancy of a woman whose brain was dead, or whose baby's brain was dead. I forgot specifically, but it was very bad. You can look it up. I think it was recent. I guess type in source brain dead woman. Maybe you'll find it there quickly. Easier. It's sad out there in Texas regarding abortion. It's just crazy out there, it seems. But yet they don't do things that would help the child in and out of the womb and the mother of that child, like making it more easier, more affordable health care, or even paid family leave for them, and protecting them from a pandemic of a virus with multiple strains. At the end of the day, conservatives and Republicans say that they want to do something, but yet they don't really do anything, and if they do anything, it could be either going backward or doing something bad. But sometimes they do good things, but not all the time now. Like they say, they value life, but yet they don't show it that much. Sometimes even showing the opposite. They do show the value of businesses, but not of a life. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a business or valuing that business. I'm not anti-business like radical and leftists are. But you can't put businesses over lives, and I'm not saying that every single Republican is against life or against people's lives, but it's hard to find them sometimes, and that's concerning. especially now, the future, present, there. So yeah, if I'm correct, that is the rest of what Ben Shapiro says. I think it gets more technical about the mandates of businesses and some things that Biden said that I may or may not agree with. And the reason why I'm not really going to talk about it, because one, I have so much I can do with the space of the stuff that I can do with editing this, and I don't want this to be 2 hours. And two, again, it's like, some of it's a little bit outdated. Some are like, okay, agree or disagree, or like, maybe it was this or that, or hey, Trump's doing this, and like, I think you guys get the point. I think that would be, repeating myself a lot, basically. So for your sakes, I'm not gonna do that. But like with everything that I do, who I talk about or listen to or listen/talk about, links are of that video down below if you feel like I missed something so important that I should have talked about, that I most likely talked about already, or that, again, I don't want this to make 2 hours. Again. So with that, get your DeLorean or chair DeLorean. Let's go back to the present, which will be the future, since it's the past. Just turn on. Things have changed, but some things still stay the same. But prayerfully, things will get better and not worse. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Hey, real quick, if you want to dedicate your life to Christ, aka get saved, or if you're a backslider and want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking with tongues, those prayers are in the description down below. When it's